Welcome to Security Architecture Podcast, where we help cybersecurity professionals to stay ahead of the curve and ensure they are successful in their cybersecurity journey.
Hi, I'm Evgeny.
Hi, I'm Dimitri.
We have here Greg from BWG. Greg, can you please introduce yourself and the company?
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm one of the partners of BWG Strategy. BWG is an executive networking group of about 100,000 professionals who come together in forums, not unlike this, to discuss trends that are happening across technology, media, retail, and consumer. I have the pleasure of hosting a lot of our technology forums, including enterprise security. And I have the pleasure of hosting both Evgeny and Dimitri in some of my forums. So it's nice to turn the camera around and change the roles here. Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Great. So let's start with discussion around the enterprise security market and why it's so important to the investors right now.
Happy to. Investors, broadly speaking, whether it's a retail investor or an institutional investor, they're really thinking about some major themes. One is it investable? Can I actually put my money to work? Is there the opportunity that the investment, whether it's a stock in a public company or in a private company, is going to go up, and that there'll be an exit, meaning I'll be able to either sell it in the public market or a buyer ultimately will come along and want to acquire the company. Enterprise security is really interesting right now because it's very liquid, it's very important. The TAM on it, meaning the total addressable market, is huge, in the billions, and it has broad interest, not just from the practitioners, but from really everybody up and down the corporate ecosystem. So enterprise security is interesting because there's a lot of money involved, there's a lot of interest in the companies, and the values, I think you can all appreciate, have really come to reflect a lot of that heightened interest.
You mentioned total addressable market. And I'm just wondering, what is the total addressable market for enterprise security in general?
Honestly, I have no idea.
What it will be, like a network security or zero trust?
Software, cloud, when you think about the market, you want to break it into the layers, right? So everything, it used to be that hardware was the big piece, the big part of the spend. Applications, and then broadly in terms of that drive the value, it's probably fairly, if I had to guess, and I'm guessing, a fairly big split between your hardware and your software. Then you kind of dig in a little bit and you start thinking about, all right, where's security play here? Security is interesting because I think over the last 15 years, the size of the market of security has absolutely exploded. It's been growing consistently faster than overall IT. And I think that it's, I can't give you a real number, I wish I could, but it's certainly making up a much more meaningful part of the overall IT budget. And I think the expectations are that for the next couple of years, it'll continue to outpace. We're going to talk here, guys, about zero trust and the changing paradigm of security, moving to a borderless enterprise, and a lot of the exciting opportunities that brings in terms of identifying new companies, new technologies, and new investable ideas for public and private investment.
Is the market resilient for the investor? Like, how does they approach? It sounds like everything's moving so fast right now.
So I think, again, you follow the dollars. The question is, enterprise security as a whole, what are the chances that that's going to be reduced meaningfully on a pure aggregate basis? Not much. I think there's pretty good visibility that spend will be maintained. Then you kind of go in another layer deeper and say, all right, zero trust. What are the chances that spending in zero trust and zero trust related themes is going to drop significantly? I think the three of us would probably agree, no, it's probably just on an upswing, given, again, borderless, given the big push towards the remote worker in so many different connected devices. So what's the resilience of investment in zero trust related technologies and companies? I think it's probably really high.
Next question would be about how does zero trust compare to other major teams in enterprise security, like supply chain security, data governance security, cloud security, and remote workers?
You know, Dimitri, I think about it broadly. So, you know, I don't think an investor comes in and starts by saying, I want to invest in zero trust. I think they say to themselves, where's the best investment opportunity that's available to me? And there's some big themes that we're all aware of, right? Cloud, generically, huge theme. Digital transformation, just the idea of people improving the way in which they work, huge theme. Another major theme that's transforming how people work and live is remote and work from home, work from anywhere. Zero trust is a fundamental enabler for the remote worker and for digital transactions. So I think it's one of the large plays. You should think about these ideas, and I think investors think about it in the context of, you know, competing ideas. Where should I put my money? Should I invest my money in a telemedicine company? Should I invest my money in or a zero trust technology company? So they're competing themes, and the ideas that are going to what's going to really draw your attention, guys. It's all about change. It's about something that's going to hit an inflection. It's about you finding the thread and the theme before somebody else has. So in other words, it's not to say that remote desktop, a virtual desktop, isn't a great technology. It's a brilliant technology. It's a very secure technology. It's just a very mature technology. So the money's already gone into it. The infrastructure's already been deployed, and people are already reaping the benefits. Where investors are looking is what's going to inflect over the next couple of years. And I think zero trust and the changing architecture around how you secure remote users, remote access, and remote applications and devices, that's on the upswing. So I think it's an incredibly attractive investment.
When you say investors, I'm wondering, just for everyone who's listening to us will know, we're talking about private firms, VCs, public equities. Can you elaborate a bit more so people understand who actually invest in such companies and how do they look at the market?
I think these comments apply to all, whether it's an institutional investor who's controlling hundreds of millions of dollars, a private equity investor who's working off smaller funds, maybe riskier investments, but still at the corporate level, or retail investors who are just managing your own portfolio. I think they should all really view these themes in similar lights. Obviously, everyone has their own have some major differences. The public investors really need to be able to get in and out of a vehicle. So for them, a company might be great, but if it's under $1 billion market cap, that might be pretty tough to come in with the size positions they need. A private equity firm, they need to be able to see the growth and perhaps if it's levered, generate cash flow. For a venture capital investor, for them, it's all about the big breakouts, something not growing 20%, but something growing 10x or 100x. So again, the types of investments that they're looking for differ. But I think all of these still share the same idea of it's about inflection. It's about something that hasn't been discovered or broadly appreciated and capturing the initial theme and how it's going to lead to an opportunity for a specific company.
There are so many companies in the cybersecurity space that are doing different great things. How does a vendor cause a disruption today and can differentiate himself against others?
It's a great question, and I think that's something that probably every listener here is thinking about. How do you differentiate? But this is my fifth organization I've been a part of, my second startup. I think every day about differentiation. What is it that I can offer my customers that is, better, more valuable, and just fundamentally has a more defendable value prop versus my competitors. In terms of the security market, it's very challenging because so much of it ends up coming down to technology specs, speeds and feeds, which often a lot of people really have a hard time understanding, and even a harder time understanding how it's going to be adopted in the market, whether it will be adopted in the market. So I think in security, probably more so than many industries, marketing and funding is an amazing enabler and differentiator. I think we know the best technologies don't always win. Marketing, some of the best technology companies are actually the best marketing companies. I think that marketing is a major enabler, and it doesn't necessarily mean the biggest budget. You could just be really clever about it. Know who your customer is. Do a great job marketing into a certain group of developers, or market into a certain open source project team, or market into a certain affinity group. Of course, money doesn't hurt, and money's a key enabler. If you have a lot of money, that in turn can enable a lot of spend on marketing, a lot of brand attention within those cohorts, or maybe broader. So it kind of comes down to, for me, it's marketing and money, and then of course, look, all of it depends on a technology that matters and works. You can often, get into conversations about, is this well marketed? What's the sales team like? What's inside sales doing here? What's the partnership look like? But if it's a great product, that should ultimately be one of the key differentiators.
Greg, you actually just stole the question I wanted to ask you about what's more important, marketing or technology. So I will pick a different topic. I'm wondering from a different perspective, how investors select winners. Do they just go by marketing, by users? Do they ask customers? What is their process to find one? Probably your company helping there, I'm thinking.
How do you pick a winner? There are kind of a couple aspects to it. One is the mob chooses, right? Win the crowd, like the movie Gladiator, win the crowd. I think there's a certain bit of that. And I think that some of the brilliant marketing companies have done a great job at that. I think that when you're talking about a smaller tech company, I think you really have to know your customer really, really well, and win their hearts. So find out what their real pain point is and solve a pain point for it. It could be a pain point of time. It could be a pain point of too much complexity. It could be a pain point of cost. Or it could be a pain point of, I can't stand working with this other team. Make it so I don't have to work with that other team anymore. It could be something as silly as that. But when you win your customers, ultimately the customer chooses. And you win your customers, the investors will follow. So we could get confused here in thinking about watching the stock market, and watching the marketing that goes in, and all the attention that's paid to these billion-dollar companies. But I think ultimately it's really pretty simple business 101. The companies that win the customers and win the customers' hearts and minds and have high NPS scores, ultimately investors, they may not pay attention for a little bit, they may get distracted for a while, but their attention will always be drawn to the companies that really understand their customers and really do very well for their customers.
What are the investors expecting with regards to the impact of COVID on the markets in 2021 and beyond? Is it something that they expect to be here for a short term of time and then disappear? Or is it something that they will have continuation beyond?
One of the reasons my business has been so busy is I think investors are really trying to understand that. I think we're all trying to understand that. What does the world look like post-COVID? I think there is the expectation that there will be a reversion to the mean, and people will return to offices to a certain extent. People will return to movie theaters to a certain extent. But there will be long-term fundamental changes that will not go back to normal. And understanding what goes back and what does not go back is one of the really fascinating conversations. So we were thinking about the idea of, I was thinking of a conversation I had about drug studies on a prior session. And the fact that today, when you try and do a clinical drug study for a pharmaceutical business, site specific, which means you go to a certain location, you have a doctor, you check in, you take the medication, they take your vitals, they track you, they ask how you're doing, and you check in next week or next month, and they follow you for a certain period of time, and they decide, did the drug work or did it not work? That's how drug studies work. That's a multi-10, $50 billion business. What COVID taught us is that a lot of that can be done remotely. You don't necessarily have to do these studies on a site-by-site basis. And a business, an industry that's tens of billions of dollars is effectively changing to remote. Never would you have thought COVID did that, but COVID has done that. Another session I just did about simulation software. Companies spend, again, this is a multi-billion-dollar business of running a simulation of a car crash or dropping a piece of electronics to see how it works, or filling a water bottle on an assembly line at full speed and seeing how the water fills the bottle, and if at a certain speed it's going to tip off the assembly line or not. These are simulations that engineers do every single day. Well, what COVID taught us was all the physical testing that's done can't take place or has not been able to take place. So where engineers didn't trust the simulations last year, they're saying, we don't have a choice. We can't get into the office. We can't run the physical test. Let's just give it a shot with the digital simulation. And you know what they found? A lot of the simulations that they weren't counting on before actually proved out to be pretty accurate. So that business, a multi-billion-dollar business, has shifted to digital. So I'm sorry, Dimitri, this is a bit of a tangent, my apologies, but you've asked, what are we expecting post-COVID? Some reversion to the mean, but also a fair amount of aspects that are not going back to normal. And within the security realm, I know we should be talking about zero trust and some of the different aspects of full stack security. Bot security is through the roof because lo and behold, bot activity is through the roof. I think that MDM, a market that I thought was too difficult and too challenging a couple of years ago, suddenly has become near and dear to everyone's hearts because everyone's sitting with personal information on their home laptops. And whereas before people didn't want to intrude on MDM on a personal device, you know what? I think companies are deciding they have to enforce it. There's some pretty fundamental changes, and it's exciting. And the great investment opportunities are those individuals who see that change, look ahead, and kind of believe that change is going to be the beginning of something bigger.
If you had a crystal ball, and we're talking about zero trust, ZTNA, remote access, we have a lot of companies in the space, and it sounds like everybody right now that has access to GCP, AWS, Azure can pretty much build his own company without having their own data centers. Do you expect a lot of M&As happening and transactions this year that the company will be acquired?
An investor thinks about it from two sides. What's the value and what's the cost? I think there's a very clear sense of value. I think there's, unfortunately, a lot of exuberance in cost. So I think that there will be a lot of tuck-ins for companies that aren't appreciated, and for those people who see the opportunity for a specific technology to solve a problem. But I don't expect the huge consolidation, not as of yet, just because the valuations are too high. The companies that have equity and can use it and can expect companies to take their paper, this high value paper, sure, they're going to try and spend it. The tuck-ins, I mean, we've talked about, again, you guys and this community know the specific technologies a whole lot better than I ever will. But I continue to see point solutions do very, very well. Browser isolation is one thing that I just think of. It doesn't come up that much, but lo and behold, in this environment, it becomes incredibly important. And then you see a whole flurry of acquisitions that take place to make sure that everybody has it. There's a certain amount of herd mentality, Evgeny, which you and I have talked about in sessions, where there was a big run on CASBs, right? So to make sure that everybody has a decent CASB offer. I think prior to that, there was a big run on what was it called? Intrusion prevention systems, where wildfire and FireEye, showed everyone that this was a fundamental, important part of a piece of technology. And then, lo and behold, every platform ran around and bought their favorite solution from Cisco, Palo Alto, and others.
You mentioned browser isolation. Interestingly enough, me and Dimitri have been recording for quite a while, and now we see reverse browser isolation as part of remote access. If you ask me 5 years ago, I don't think anybody would predict that now people in the companies will try to defend themselves, not from bad guys, but from their internal people. We will give you the connectivity, but we will put you on the hands reach that make sure whatever you have on your PC not get to us.
Greg, do you see any noticeable emerging companies in the zero trust space? Anything that you might hear or see as part of your session?
Dimitri, you know what? I think I'm the wrong person to be calling out specific companies. I certainly know who's interesting. I know the areas that are interesting. What I can do is tell you this. From the industry that I follow, I support the public equity investors and the large investors more than the small. So I don't see the startups nearly as clearly as the VCs in this space do. What I can tell you is the broad themes are going to bring about a whole new slew of winners. Data protection, I think, is getting a lot of attention and is becoming fundamental. I think that governance and policy management is incredibly important. I think the new administration and their focus on, the potential focus on GDPR for the US, federal level data privacy, might also bring about a whole slew of interest in terms of consumer protection.
And it's actually wrapping everything together. We did a live show recently, and we spoke about the information and the importance of the DLP with remote access to make sure you don't take information. So it's also a very, very important part. Greg, we did speak a bit about what you guys do, but before we wrap up, maybe you can tell a bit more about who can participate in your calls, how to find you, or if you guys looking for people to participate, if there's investors or this is people that are on a technical level.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll do a shameless plug. Any investors that are interested in joining our sessions, you can find us online. We'd be thrilled to speak with you. There's no cost for participants to join. We host about 12 sessions a day, these group forums, kind of a clubhouse style, and it's really based on interest. So long as you have the interest and you want to take the time to join one of our forums, we'd be happy to share our schedule and see what fits. So it's pretty simple. Come find us at www.bwgstrategy.com and just fill out the form. No cost to join, and we just try and match people to the right topics.
So you're the clubhouse for technology in the space. Nice marketing.
We're the clubhouse for industry. Yeah, I might have to use that. I like that.
Greg, I just was trying to figure out before our call how many years I'm being on your calls, and I think it's around 4 years. And people ask me what it is. It's like, and how I started, and I don't really remember how I even started, but it's been quite a fun. And I met a lot of interesting people on your calls.
Evgeny, I appreciate it. Look, I really believe that it's about people talking to people, whether it's, finding a great idea or finding an investment or finding a new job or just making some friends. Life's about people. So we stick to that. We'll do pretty well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Guys, thank you so much. This is a lot of fun. It's unusual for me to be the speaker. Typically, I get to ask the questions. So this was a good twist. I enjoyed it today. Thank you.
Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and join us for our next episode.